Hey, you beautiful beings. Welcome to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. I am your host, and you are listening to the throwback episodes. Yeah, I have officially taken a pause on creating new episodes for the podcast so that I can focus on writing the book. It became very clear that while I have loved doing the podcast, I'm getting these episodes out every week to you all piecemeal. I was like, no more, no more. You all were like, please, can you get us all those skills and tools, Nina, in one area so that we can do the empowered human journey, so that we can really see what it's like from start to finish, to which I say, yes, absolutely. Let me get this to you. Yes. So what you're going to be hearing is this. You're going to be hearing throwback episodes from all 6 seasons, okay? It's not going to be every episode, so don't freak out on me yet. But it is going to be some of the episodes that were highlighted, that were popular, that we think, maybe you all missed and we want to bring it back. You're going to be hearing throwback episodes, and I am going to be listening along with you. I too want to hear about the journey and experience the journey that I had as we moved from Triggered Can We Play With That, the original podcast, all the way to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. So you're going to hear personal stories. You're going to hear interviews. You're going to be given skills in every episode. Yes, you're going to be given tools in every episode for you to become skilled in. It is totally up to you whether you want to listen. If it's not the episode for you, skip to the next week, right? You just take what works for you, leave what doesn't. And if there's some stuff you're curious about, why don't you just go ahead and put that on the shelf? The podcast has always been about putting resources in the hands of people without needing to pay for it, right? And so this is no different. Even with these throwback episodes, what you're going to hear is this. We're going through, just as I said, you're going to still hear me talk at the beginning of each episode, letting you know, hey, we've had a transition. You're going to hear the original intro to the episode. You're going to hear the show music, and then you're going to hear the full original episode. This could mean that dates are off, that times are off, that people are talked about, that may no longer be in our lives, right? Just be aware of that. At the very end of the episode, you're going to see this face again come back to remind you that it was a throwback episode and to maybe offer you some adventure challenges as you move from week to week, right? Though the format of the episode did change over the years that we've done this podcast, the value is still there. So if you like something, definitely hit me up on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina and be like, Nina, I love that throwback episode about XYZ thing. Yes, fill in the blank with that. Let me know. And if there's something that you're looking for in the meantime, also hit me up on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina and let me know. Otherwise, stay curious and enjoy the ride, folks. I'll be right along there with you. Welcome to Empowered Human, the dramatically playful podcast that invites you to heal humanity, the one within you, me, and the world at large. I'm your host, drama therapist, empowerment specialist, and not to mention empowered human, Nina Garcia. And I'm so stoked you're joining me on the journey. Every Wednesday, you are invited to explore transforming from powered to empowered with genuinely human stories of courageous existence, healing from invalidation, and truly belonging to you. So wherever you are on the spectrum, from empowerment curious to empowered human ambassador, this podcast is designed to humanize. Get ready to lean into your edge, heal your worldview, and finally belong to you. This is Empowered Human. Today's episode, folks, is going to be featuring Bo Bissett. Now, Bo is going to talk to us about trauma patterns. Number one thing, okay? Yes, we get into trauma patterns, behaviors and thoughts and feelings that keep coming back and keep affecting us. And we're like, why does this keep happening to me? It's because there is a pattern and you can break that pattern if you want to, friend. You can. It's a real thing. I do it. Bo has done it. And Bo and I are going to be talking with you today on the episode about that. Talking about not just trauma patterns, but also after you recognize that it's a pattern, how do you disrupt it so that you can move forward with a more effective way of seeing yourself way of seeing other people, engaging with yourself, engaging with other people. How do you become more vibrant as you deal with these triggers one by one? Okay, so we're not going to be dealing with everything that it has to deal with trauma patterns and disrupting trauma patterns, but we are going to be dealing with one facet that has to deal with the triggers around this and how we can basically level up when it comes to saying, you know what? I see that. I see a little pattern and I'm going to change you. Yeah. We're about to control what we can control. So grab you a journal or a good friend to dialogue with what comes up for you in this episode. Because for now, as we're about to hear Bo's real story, let's take a breath. Listeners and viewers, we officially have Bo Bissett in the house. And before I invite Bo to introduce himself, I am going to set the intent of this episode. Our intent, as always in Triggered, Can We Play With That, is to transform a hard conversation into a teachable moment. And so what that means is we are consenting now, if you're listening, if you're watching, and Bo and I right here as we film this live right now, right? We're consenting to move forward into potentially sticky, potentially uncomfortable territory. And we are going to agree, to go into this territory together and to respect each other as we do it, right? We're going to listen, we're going to talk it out, we're going to walk it out, and we're going to get through it together. Does that sound good, Bo?
Sounds perfect.
Right. So, Bo, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. Help us locate you in the world. What feels most valuable about who you are as a person in this particular moment?
I am a healing guide. I transformed my own struggles, self-defeating attitude, self-sabotage into something that I have used to heal myself and now help others do the same. So I don't consider myself a healer. I've walked the road and now I'm going back down the road and grabbing other people by the hand and helping them along.
Healing guide. Thank you so much for that image as well.
Yeah, no problem.
Down the road and then back up. Love it. Okay. So,
Okay.
Bo, I know you've got a moment. You're going to be sharing it with us. But before I introduce the title of that moment, let's do an internal weather check-in. How are you inside? Is it rainy? Is it sunny? Is it cloudy with a chance of meatballs? What's going on there?
Tropical.
Tropical.
Yeah, it's tropical weather, beautiful sunshine, clear, crystal clear blue waters. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. I'm feeling like relaxation, zen, vibrance. When I think about like tropical crystal clear blue, so clarity. Do these things ring true?
Yes, exactly.
All right. So let's move into your moment, Bo. The title of your moment was The Wanderer, right? The Wanderer, which is such a powerful title. And your intent in sharing this moment was to let other people know that traumatic moments can be released, that it is a choice, right? That we can choose healing when it comes to this. So I'm going to stop talking and I want you to I just want to invite you to share your story. What is the story of The Wanderer?
For me, the Wanderer started when I was 12 years old, and my parents sat my brother and I down in their bedroom. They sat us down on the bed, and my dad was kind of pacing around the room. My mom sat down beside us, and they told us that they were getting divorced. And as soon as I heard that, I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and my parents, that was the first that I didn't know any other parents or any other friends who had had their parents divorced, and that just hit me like a brick wall. And I jumped up and ran out of the house, out of the neighborhood, and I was gone until dinner time. And then I came back when I was hungry. And basically, that was a pattern that I created. I stamped into my psyche and repeated over and over and over again until just a few years ago, actually.
Yeah. And when you say pattern, you're talking about that something intensely, right, dramatic, traumatic happens, and then you leave, you jet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then,
or even get uncomfortable, not even, just a uncomfortable incidents. And So after that incident, I ran every time I got uncomfortable. I ran. In my 20s, I left the country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before that, I buried a lot of the, because I couldn't run, right? I mean, I was a teenager and I was going to high school, and I mean, I was just following along with my friends, but I buried that desire to run, to like drugs and alcohol. And as soon as I graduated university, I got a good job, and like, I medicated myself with drugs and alcohol, and then in my mid 20s, I just left. Yeah, I left. I ran, and then I ran and I ran and I ran. I just ran from country to country and country to country, and then then finally bottomed out.
You bottomed out.
Yeah, I was in Vietnam, and I had bankrupted myself once again, physically, emotionally, financially, relationship wise, job wise. And I called my brother, and I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. And he said, hey, come home. So I did, and um, at that point, I was staying with my aunt and uncle, and uh, my body started breaking down physically from all the alcohol that I poisoned myself with. And then my aunt got cancer. She got breast cancer, and at that time, it was like that was boom. That was like, all right, man, you've got to get it together. So that's when I started looking.
That's when you started. What was that last bit?
That's when I started looking. That's when I started my search to get, to get better, to heal, to pick myself up and finally move forward.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Bo.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for
I mean,
giving
even
me the space to do stuff.
no, absolutely. The clarity with which you have of how far back this pattern goes, where it started, um, the running and getting to the next thing. And part of what we're talking about is fear responses, right? When we think about fear responses as fight, flight, freeze, and for those who don't know, fawn, right? Fawning is like attaching in a very particular way. And what we have here is flight, right? And flight looks like so many different things, but what you're describing, and I think listeners and viewers, when we think about flight, a lot of us think about in the moment, literally jetting, right? Like when your parents landed that on you and you physically escaped from the space, right? And I think some of us miss that flight is us avoiding the thing, right? It's us getting away from it. And it doesn't just show up physically like that. We fly away mentally and emotionally when we get into drugs, when we get into alcohol, right? Even sex addiction, whatever the case is, right? Whatever is helping us avoid those uncomfortable feelings, the trauma, the drama of that moment, that's flight. And you've recognized that, right? And if you're out there, listeners and viewers, if you're out there and this is something that you notice a pattern in your life of jetting away from something and heading to drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever the case is, there may be a pattern of flight here that can be disrupted, right? Just as Bo is going to share a little bit more about in a bit, it absolutely can be disrupted. The other way that you described, Bo, of flight is physically also like flying from country to country. I don't know how many clients have walked into my office and said how many times they have flown from one job to the next, from one relationship to the next, from one state to the next. And I think I can say honestly, the most extensive I've heard is what you just expressed of that country to country. But emotional hijacking is so intense. And it really, when our emotions hijack us, when we're triggered, it's like, let's go, like, let's friggin' go. We've got to get out of here. It's for our safety. And yet, right, it's thinking short term, not long term.
Exactly.
How did you disrupt a pattern that we're talking, I mean, what, decades? Decades?
Yeah, decades.
It's incredible. I mean, how does one disrupt such a thing, right? I know some ways that I would do that, right? In session, of course, but how?
Right. The way that I finally did it was through muscle testing, which is part of the system that I've developed, which is called Harmony. We use muscle testing to get in touch with the established communication with our own body.
Mhm.
Then we use a meridian chart to tag the emotions that we're looking for. Then we use a pranayama breath called the Amo breath.
Mm.
And finally, we use a little bit of neuro-linguistic programming at the end to grease the wheels of intention and send the individual further down their path of where they want to go. And for me, like the muscle testing was like so important because it was the first time that it took me weeks before I could actually muscle test and actually trust the results. At first, when I first started doing it, I was like, man, this is BS.
And I
Uh,
think you'll have to tell us, what is muscle testing? Like, how would you just define that?
there's several different ways to do it. There's one where like you have an individual, you have two people doing it. And like I learned that like when I was, I don't know, like in my 20s, like at a what did you call it? Chamber of Commerce meeting or something like that. Somebody demonstrated it. It's one person stands with their arm extended, who's the test subject, and then the tester stands behind the person and puts the pressure on the arm, and the arm to a true statement stays extended, and then to a false statement, the arm will drop. And when I learned how to do self muscle testing, that was like for me, like I said, that was a game changer because I've always enjoyed working on myself. And and that's what I knew that I needed to do. I was like, the things that I have going on, nobody else can help me with. I have to help myself with.
Yes, yes, yes.
Exactly, right?
Like, you just frame that moment. Like, nobody else. You have to do it yourself.
Exactly.
Nobody
Yeah,
can
and
do
then
it.
it gave me so much power.
Ah,
So yeah, the muscle testing, the self muscle testing, the way I do it is I use with my control hand is my left hand. I'm right handed, so I make a ring with my index and my thumb, and then with my testing hand, I use my pinky finger and my thumb, and I make a ring with the two of them. All right, and so yes, they stay linked, and no, they pop apart. And it's not something you go like, oh, you're not trying to yank it apart. It's just
you're listening.
but anyway, so finding, yeah.
Yeah.
And listening, right? So that's the first part. The first part of the whole process is like trusting yourself and trusting that answer that you're getting. Yep, exactly. And once that establish that trust, then you come to the communication. And once there's a line of communication between you and your body, you and your subconscious, like boom, you can ask any question you want, get any answer you want. You can find, find the gold that you're looking for. And for me, it was just really just took me places that I'd hid myself from for, like you said, decades, right? But once I found those places, uncovered them and uncovered them, it was just such an enlightening experience because for me, like I realized that the whole journey, and consciously I was somewhat aware of that, but like subconsciously, I never wanted to admit that like I had done everything that I had done to myself. The drinking I had done to myself. The running away I had done to myself.
It's
And,
some choice.
yeah, so I took complete ownership of that. And when that happened, when that light bulb moment happened, it was like, oh, God. And I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And then, yeah.
Your honesty and in sharing this and expressing this is so, what is the word? It's like beyond valuable. Beyond valuable because there's so many different pieces that I want to touch on, and I'm like, which one is the most in the time that we have, Nina? Which one do you want to really share?
Yeah.
But some of what you talked about, especially the listening piece, that listening in, that is such a critical piece to learn to listen to what your body is telling you, as opposed to what maybe your thoughts are telling you should do, right? The shoulds. I always tell people, like, if you start hearing I should feel a certain way, should think, it's like, it's a flag it. There's something deeper there. Listen in, what's at the core. And when something traumatic happens, it shakes our internal experience so much that it becomes difficult to even trust what we hear, right? We second guess ourselves. We wonder, is this real? Is this really what I want, right? And it's a question of what is real in our world. For a lot of people with trauma, this is the struggle, is having to learn how to trust themselves again, right?
Mhm.
Having to learn how to trust other people again, in some cases as well, depending on the type of trauma, right? But most importantly, how do I trust myself again, right?
Yeah.
And especially, gosh, the challenge of that, right? If somebody else does something to us, it's one thing to learn how do I trust myself again, right?
Mhm.
But if we make those choices over and over again were not in our best interest, and we did it over and over again, the courage that it takes, and that's a very particular word I want to use, the courage that it takes to own the truth that was something that we did, right? Maybe it wasn't what we wanted, not what we intended. Certainly we didn't want the impact, right? It's not what we would have chosen in our healthiest state. But to take accountability for that, I have found personally and professionally when I work with people as well, is freeing. It's liberating to say, this wasn't something that was out of my control. This is something that, if I ever feel this way again, I can make a different choice. I have the power to do that. When you said it was like giving yourself power again, I was like, yes, it's like taking
Yeah.
back the power, right?
Right.
Quick break for a sec. If Empowered Human is offering you something valuable about courage, healing, belonging, or love at your core, you may want to work with me. In particular, if you know of or identify as a high achieving man, and I say this quite seriously because if you don't, I'm going to drive you up a friggin' wall. High achiever that has leveled up in every arena except your relationship with yourself or your relationships with others. Visit empoweredhuman.love for more on how you can level up in your relationships with one of our Empowered Human intensives. Intensives understand the value of your time. Of the 3 that I offer, Walk into Courage covers a month's worth of weekly sessions in just 2 hours. Dive into Courage is a 3-day intensive that can cover up to 6 months worth of sessions. And Ascend into Courage is a year-long program to give you the skills and the network you need to level up for lifelong emotional security. When it comes to leveling up in your relationships, I got you. Head to empoweredhuman.love for more. But for now, back to the episode.
It took a lot for me to get to that point too. It's you talk about, communicating with the body and, a lot of us are, all of us, we're all conditioned, right from the get-go. First of all, we start, we listen to our parents, then we go to school and listen to the teachers, then we listen to our friends and follow in that group, and then we go to work. And now, all of us walk around with a mobile phone now, and like we don't even think for ourselves anymore, right? We just trust everything to this little device. And so it's been, it's been decades for everybody that everybody's listened to their own body, right? We conditioned ourselves out of listening to what is true to us. Like we are so used to listening to everybody else's voices that we've forgotten about the inner voice that we have, and that it's the most important voice, and the guiding compass for where we should be. And once I stripped away all of that programming, it was that voice just started getting louder and louder and louder. And then I was like, oh wow, there you are.
You've cultivated intuition, right? This is at least one of the words that I would use to describe that inner voice, that inner guidance, that compass, is this like intuitive self that really knows what's actually best for you in the moment, right? That it is actually thinking of your best interest and the people who are in your life, right? And I mean, what I'm hearing is you've cultivated that intuitive self, right?
Exactly.
Yes, it is possible. I think another big piece that I want to reflect back that I think is so valuable for people listening and watching is how disconnected we are from our bodies. And we get up in our head, and it is so easy to lie to ourselves. It's so easy to believe a lie, believe that we should be something that we're not. And then the shame that comes from that, and the shame that And then we won't deal with that. And it's just a vicious cycle, right? This vicious cycle of not having the self really at the center. It's having other narratives at the center, other people's stories, that conditioning, that the narratives that we're taught, it's having all of that at the center. And the magic of what can happen, right? And folks, it's not really magic. You really can't do this systematically, right?
Exactly.
But it feels like the magic, the freedom of what can happen when you tap into that intuitive self and learn to settle into your body, to really settle into the body and hear what it is telling you. I like to say sometimes to my clients, like, the body doesn't lie, we just misinterpret.
Exactly. Exactly right. Exactly right.
So I think that what you're sharing is so valuable. Last little bit, I think that I want to reflect back is when we think about the body again, and we're not taught to listen. So how valuable it is, to reach out to Bo. If this is something that feels valuable, right? Is if you're like, Nina, I'm really disconnected from my body. I'm going to say, hey, did you listen to that podcast with Bo that I did? Right. This is a great thing if this is the case, right? To get back in touch with the body. And also, I think about different ways that people learn, how some people are auditory and some people are visual and some people are tactile kinesthetic, right? If you don't know what that is, head to Google, y'all. But the different ways that we learn and how critically important for someone, I'll even use myself as an example, like myself, who is tactile kinesthetic, to have ways to listen into my body, how critically important it is to have that as a skill. Now, I'm going to say across the board, everyone needs this skill, but especially if you are tactile kinesthetic and you are struggling to get to know your emotions, get in on this, y'all. Get in on this. There are ways out there for you to learn how to listen in and challenge the emotional hijacking that happens when we're triggered. And we're all going to be triggered at some point.
Exactly.
So,
The thing that you mentioned earlier, about trauma. It's like, most people forget that, like, well, I think, like, the way trauma has been portrayed is that, it takes like this huge, like, it's got to come from PTSD, from war, or from a car accident, or, but like trauma can come from your mom, looking at you wrong, when you were trying to pick up a piece of candy off of the rack at the supermarket, right? I mean, it's so, or not even from a look. It could come from like an energy that you're feeling in a situation. Like, it's just, and yeah, I mean, the trauma it comes in big and small, and like, so yeah.
Absolutely. Since you brought it up, I'm going to expand on this. I love the
Yeah, please do.
moment. So this is so critically important. For you all listening out there, when we think of trauma, I think it is just what Bo said. The popular definition is like, you've got to have gone through war or experienced something really intense, like rape, right? That those are the things that lead to PTSD. And in fact, people can go to war and can experience rape and not have PTSD. You can also have someone like what we just described, right? A mother yelling at you over grabbing a piece of candy when you shouldn't have. And this can be the seed of something traumatic with relational trauma. There is identity trauma that comes from invalidating someone's identity. And we see this a lot with race, with religion, with ethnicity, age, any kind of prejudice around an identity. Trauma can develop around identity invalidation. That is a real thing that happens. And then, of course, we have things, right, that are intense, right? But what trauma is, in essence, is what sits in the body after an experience in which there was a perceived threat. That's what trauma is. So some of us won't have trauma after a perceived threat, right? Or a real threat. Many of us will. And if we don't learn the tools to deal with that trauma, it just likes to sit there and it's just going to keep ringing that alarm bell. And it's going to be like, remember that time that this happened? We have to watch out for that. Remember that time that this happened? We have to watch out for that. But there are tools out there. There are skills out there for us to disrupt those patterns, disrupt those thought patterns, those feeling patterns, those behavior patterns. There are skills out there. I have them. Bo has them, right? And we're not the only two, but my goodness, glaciers, if you take nothing from this episode, please let it be known. Patterns exist and patterns can be disrupted. We can get you back in control of your life and we can disrupt the emotional hijacking that is happening because of something traumatic that happened to you at one point or at many points in your life. It is possible. Thank you for bringing that up, Bo. It's so important.
No worries. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for elaborating on it. That was awesome.
Oh my goodness. So we are nearing the end of the episode. I have a feeling in my chest. I'm going to call it out because I love my listeners to listen into their body, and we're also talking about listening. I want to talk to you more. I want to sit down with you on the beach. I want to have more
Come to
conversation.
Taiwan.
Come to Taiwan. I'll be there next week. And just there's an openness in my chest, and you have there's even right now physically looking at you, there's like a light about you, which is lovely.
Oh, thank you.
But thank you so much. I want to know, as we're at the end of the episode, we set out to have a hard conversation, to go into some sticky spaces, some uncomfortable spaces, to talk about triggers. We set out to transform, hard conversation and hard things into teachable moments. What were your takeaways? Do you feel like we did that?
Yeah, we definitely talked about some difficult situations, and I'm at the point where I don't my moments are teachable moments for others now. I don't have any, I don't hang on to anything. Those moments do not define me anymore. They used to. I used to hang on to. I've been through this accident. I was in a near-death car accident. My grandfather came and talked to me. My dead grandfather came and saw me on the way to the hospital and told me to go back, and it wasn't my time. I regretted that decision for 20 years after that. I got into another, and I could tell you, all the stuff that I've been through, but and I used to hang on to oh, this is who I am. This is my badge of honor. And now it's just no, it's I said, those are things that I've done, and these are things that I can tell you and others about where I've been, but they don't necessarily, they don't define who I am right now. So they're just moments that we've talked about, and that others can see wow, this guy, and Nina as well, both of us have been through stuff, and we've all been through stuff, and we're just trying to grow through that stuff and get to and just level up and learn how to live in the bodies that we've been put in.
I just wish I could just frame that again. Just wow. I mean, there's so much to take away from this. I even have one more thing from what you just said to add to this.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
When you talk about the power of being able to say that your story is just your story, you no longer hold on to moments with that vice grip that some of us hold on to the trauma, right? We hold on to it and we relive it, or we retell it, right? And some of what that is what we refer to as trauma mastery. We're trying to master it, right? And so we keep going into the scary space, trying to get out of it, but it's unintentionally going in there. And so we don't get out of it because the intention is not to get out of it. It's just sharing it, right? And without getting too much into the weeds there is a way that I reflect this back to clients sometimes. And I want to share it here because it's what you just shared of how do we let it go? I often will share that when a trauma happens, whether it's PTSD, big T trauma, or little T trauma, that what we initially tend to think of it as is this monster in the closet. And it's let's not deal with that. Let's avoid that, right? Talk about flight. Let's just leave that in the closet. Don't open that closet, right? And then, of course, eventually something accidentally opens the closet, right? Or we stuff it under the carpet and we trip over it, right? But we're avoiding this monster. But when you intentionally lean in to start doing this work and really listening into what your body needs and what you need to move forward and through it, it's no longer a monster in the closet. It's we shine a light on it and we're oh, wait, it's not a monster in the closet anymore, right? And it creeps out. And we're it's just a big ass elephant in the room now, right? I feel like people can see it on me and they know it on me, right? And it's okay, I got to talk about this still because it's an elephant in the room, right? But then the more we shine the light on the elephant, we're oh, wait, it's not an elephant anymore. It's just a to-do list on the table. I know and I could tell you what it is, all the things that I'm working on, but it doesn't disrupt my life anymore. I don't feel like people can see it on me, right? It's this to-do list on the table. And then the last place when I'm man, you know that you've done incredible work, right? Beyond all of this is you shine the light on that to-do list so much that it's not there anymore. It's just the air you breathe. It's just something that happens. It happened, right? And we don't need to dwell on it. We don't need to think about breathing the same way. We don't need to think about the trauma that happened. We can talk about it. We know that it happened, but it does not define us as a being anymore. Thank you for sharing that. Incredibly valuable. So, without trying to keep you on longer, even though my soul is feeling it, I want to just check in with you one more time. Your internal weather, what's it like now?
Tropical on the beach, but now I have a pina colada.
Hey, I love it. Refreshing. So, Bo, this has been so, so lovely. This is early morning for me. I know it's late night for you, but what a way to start my day. I hope that this has been helpful to end your day with. But where can people find you?
The best place is the website. So it's ammonieclear.com. That's it. That's the best place.
ammonieclear.com. And I will put that in the show notes, y'all, so you don't have to rewind and hit that back up. Thank you, Bo. I'm incredibly grateful for your sharing of energy today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nina. I appreciate it.
Otherwise, everyone else, that is what we planned for today, folks. So thank you for taking a minute to explore your triggers as a human being. And if this episode has been helpful and you have benefited from it, my invitation is for you to take this episode of Triggered Can We Play With That and to share it with someone else who you know it is going to help, okay? That's what helps new people find us, when you share because it genuinely benefited you. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. And otherwise, stay curious.
It's me again, reminding you that this was a throwback episode. I hope that you were able to take something from it, even one little nugget of wisdom, and use that between this week and next week, right? The purpose of these episodes is to give you tools. It is up to you to decide whether you want to become skilled in them. You picking up what I'm putting down? So take a tool, take something, a perspective, a moment, something that works for you, and use it in your life to transform hard conversations into teachable moments, to transform the way that you play with scary moments, right? To transform your life, to help make you the most courageous, most healing-oriented, most belonging person, right? No matter where you go, that you belong to yourself everywhere you go, right? Courage, healing, belonging, whatever it is that you are taking from this episode, take it with you so that you can get out there and live your most vibrant life, you beautiful human being, okay? All right, I'm signing off for now, but you know I'm gonna see you soon, okay? I'm gonna see you real soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much for being willing to explore healing your humanity on Empowered Human. I hope you found at least one new way to transform your worldview from powered to empowered. If you took something from the show, please take a moment of your time and subscribe to Empowered Human. And if it really nourished you, leave us a review. Your feedback helps me understand what our community needs. Not to mention, it helps others discover the empowered human life. So keep this last bit in mind. All the visual goodies come with me on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina. Stay up to date there on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes goodness, and reels dropping knowledge. Thank you again for being part of the empowered human community. Until next time, stay curious.